Now we are going to watch as particles were thrown out of an exploding star and created new atoms. First, let's remind ourselves what these particles were. There was the hydrogen nucleus, which is one proton. It would later form a hydrogen atom. There was the helium nucleus, 2 protons and 2 neutrons. We've seen these before. There was the carbon nucleus, 6 of each, the nitrogen with 7, and the oxygen nucleus with 8 protons, 8 neutrons. There were also the larger nuclei such as silicon, magnesium and iron. Let's watch an alpha particle as it is thrown out during a supernova. It attracts an electron. And we saw in episode 12 that an electron forms a hollow shell around the nucleus of an atom. The nucleus has 2 protons, and so it can attract a second electron. The second electron enters the shell. Now comes the magic part. This shell is now filled by these 2 electrons. This full outer shell cannot accept any more electrons. As a result of this, the helium atom is inert. It's called a noble gas. The outer shell does not interact with any other atoms. The reason why is explained by the branch of physics called quantum mechanics. If the nucleus has more than 2 protons, it will attract more electrons. The first 2 electrons enter the first shell, but then any further electrons have to lie outside the first shell, so they form a second shell. And this second shell can take at most 8 electrons. And again, the science of quantum mechanics explains the reasons why. These different atoms have different numbers of electrons in their shells. And this makes different atoms behave differently. And this is the basis of the branch of science called chemistry. So we are now beginning to leave physics behind and start what is normally thought of as a different part of science, chemistry. One of the beauties of the history of the universe is that we see the links between these different branches of science. So for example, let's think about the oxygen nucleus as it is ejected from a dying star. It has 8 protons, and therefore it can gain 8 electrons. The first 2 go into the first shell. The 6 electrons go into the second shell. But we know that the second shell can hold 8 electrons. Atoms behave as if they like having full outer shells. To fill its outer shell, therefore, oxygen often steals 2 more electrons. These give the atom a negative charge. Atoms which have extra charge are called ions. Oxygen atoms can easily form negative ions, and this is often shown as O for oxygen with a little 2 and a minus sign. And oxygen atoms are usually shown as red balls in diagrams showing atoms and molecules, which we'll come on to later. Now let's watch a magnesium nucleus as it was thrown out of a supernova. It has 12 protons, and therefore it can gain 12 electrons. 2 go into the first shell, 8 go into the second shell, and 2 have to therefore go into a third shell, which is far away from the nucleus. Because it's far from the nucleus, they are easily detached because the electric force is weak. This leaves a magnesium atom with 12 protons but only 10 electrons, and these 10 electrons give it a full outer shell. Typical magnesium atoms, therefore, have 12 protons and 10 electrons, and the charge on the central nucleus, the 12 protons, shines through. So the 2 extra protons, you can see their charge from the outside of the atom. The atom, therefore, has a positive electric charge. It's called a positive ion. And ions are going to be very important in the next stage in our story. To find out more about the history of the universe, visit the website historyoftheuniverse.com. Thank you for watching.